The transport shuttle docked with orbital station Zenith 7 at exactly 0800 hours. Lieutenant Jiwoo Park stepped off the platform with a single bag slung over her shoulder. She had traveled 3 weeks from Earth to reach this place, the most prestigious military academy in the Galactic Coalition. The station stretched out before her like a small city floating in space, all metal and glass and alien architecture that hurt her eyes to look at too long. Jiwoo was not tall, barely reaching 5'4". Her black hair was tied back in a tight bun, regulation style. Her uniform was crisp and new, the Earth Defense Force patch on her shoulder still bright blue and green. She looked around the docking bay and saw species she had only read about in briefings. Tall insectoid beings with 4 arms. Creatures that looked like walking crystals. A group of gray-skinned humanoids with eyes too large for their faces. None of them looked at her. Or rather, they looked through her, as if she were not quite real. A holographic display flickered to life near her head. Lieutenant Park, report to Administration Wing, Section 4. It said in flat, mechanical tones. The display showed a map with a glowing path. Jiwoo followed it through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The academy was enormous. Through massive windows, she could see the planet below, a world called Sanctum 9 that served as the Coalition's neutral ground. Cadets in various uniforms walked past her in groups, talking in languages her translator implant struggled to process. A few glanced at her Earth patch and whispered to each other. She caught words like soft-worlder and new meat in her earpiece. Administration Wing was quieter. The walls here were covered in displays showing battles from 100 different wars across the galaxy. Jiwoo recognized none of them. Earth had only joined the Coalition 6 months ago, after proving themselves in what the aliens called the Brush Wars against automated defense systems on the galactic rim. Humanity had won those fights, but barely, and everyone knew it. The office door slid open before she could knock. Inside sat 3 beings behind a curved desk. The one in the middle was humanoid, but his skin was deep purple, and his eyes had no pupils. The nameplate said Administrator Kethis. To his left sat a floating sphere that pulsed with light. To his right was something that looked like a bear made of rock. Lieutenant Park, Kethis said. His voice was smooth but cold. You are the combat instructor Earth has sent us. Yes, sir, Jiwoo said. She stood at attention. I see. Kethis looked at a display in front of him. Your credentials say you served in Earth Special Forces. Multiple campaigns. Hand-to-hand combat specialist. Survival training expert. He looked up at her. Impressive for a human. The words hung in the air. For a human. As if her accomplishments meant less because of what she was. I am here to teach, sir, Jiwoo said simply. The floating sphere spoke next, its voice like wind chimes. The cadets here are not like your Earth soldiers. Many species have natural advantages. Strength, speed, reflexes. Some have armor that grows from their skin. Others can see in spectrums you cannot imagine. What can a human possibly teach them? Jiwoo met the sphere's gaze, or where she thought its gaze might be. I can teach them how to win when everything is against them. That is what humans do best. The rock bear made a sound like grinding stones. It might have been laughter. Bold words. We shall see if you can back them up. Your first class is tomorrow morning, 0600 hours. Gymnasium 7. You will have a mixed group. 30 cadets from 12 different species. Commander Velther will observe your session to ensure standards are maintained. Velther? Jiwoo asked. Kethis smiled, showing too many teeth. Our tactical warfare chief. A Draxian. Perhaps you have heard of his species? Jiwoo had. The Draxians were legendary fighters. Reptilian, incredibly strong, with reflexes that made them nearly impossible to hit in combat. Their warriors were considered the finest in the Coalition. Every human briefing about the academy had mentioned them with something close to fear. "I look forward to meeting him," Jiwoo said. The meeting ended. Jiwoo was assigned quarters in the instructor wing, a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window showing the stars. She unpacked her few belongings and tried to sleep, but her mind kept running through scenarios. 30 cadets, 12 species, all of them probably expecting her to fail. The next morning arrived too quickly. Jiwoo dressed in her training uniform, all black with reinforced padding. She made her way to Gymnasium 7, following the glowing path on her wrist display. The gym was massive, with a ceiling that vanished into shadows above. The floor was padded but firm, marked with circles and squares for different types of combat training. The cadets were already there, clustered in groups by species. Jiwoo counted them quickly. She saw 4 humans among them, including 2 she recognized from the manifest. Cadet Hyan, a young man who had scored top marks in Earth's basic training. Cadet Mireille, a woman who specialized in engineering but had requested combat certification. The others were alien, and they looked at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to open contempt. Then she saw him. Commander Velther stood at the back of the gymnasium with his arms crossed over his chest. He was nearly 7 feet tall, with scales that gleamed dark green under the lights. His eyes were golden and vertical slitted. When he saw her looking, he showed his teeth in what was definitely not a smile. Jiwoo walked to the center of the mat. 30 pairs of eyes followed her. "Good morning," she said. Her voice echoed in the huge space. "I am Lieutenant Jiwoo Park. I am here to teach you combat techniques that can save your life. I do not care what species you are. I do not care how strong you think you are. In my class, you will learn that technique beats strength, strategy beats size, and discipline beats talent." A ripple went through the crowd. One of the cadets, a Draxian like Velther but younger, laughed out loud. "With respect, instructor, you are tiny. How can you teach us anything about real combat?" Before Jiwoo could answer, Velther's voice cut across the gymnasium like a blade. "Cadet Rosh raises a valid question. Perhaps, Lieutenant Park, you would care to demonstrate why the Coalition should trust a human to train our warriors?" Jiwoo turned to face the commander. His golden eyes gleamed with challenge. The gymnasium fell absolutely silent. Every cadet watched, sensing that something important was about to happen. Jiwoo smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it held no warmth. "I would be happy to demonstrate, Commander," she said quietly. "Would you care to volunteer?" Commander Velther uncrossed his arms slowly. The movement was deliberate, theatrical. He wanted everyone to see what was about to happen. Around the gymnasium, cadets shifted on their feet, some moving closer to get a better view. The 4 human cadets looked worried. Cadet Hyan opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it again. "I think not, Lieutenant," Velther said, his voice carrying easily across the space. "It would be inappropriate for me to engage in combat with an instructor. However, I believe a demonstration is in order." He gestured to the young Draxian cadet who had laughed earlier. "Cadet Rosh, step forward." Rosh moved onto the mat with confidence. He was young, maybe 20 in human years, but already he stood over 6 feet tall. His scales were lighter than Velther's, more of a forest green. Muscles rippled under his skin as he took a fighting stance. Like all Draxians, he had been training in combat since he could walk. Jiwoo studied him for a moment. She had reviewed Draxian physiology during the flight from Earth. Their bone density was 3 times that of humans. Their muscle fiber was more efficient. They could strike with enough force to crack concrete. In a contest of pure strength, no human could ever win against one. Good thing she had never planned to fight fair. "Cadet Rosh," Jiwoo said calmly, "please attack me as you would an enemy combatant." Do not hold back. I need the other cadets to see a realistic scenario. Rosh glanced at Velther, who nodded. The young Draxian's expression shifted to something predatory. As you wish, instructor. I will try not to hurt you badly. He moved fast, faster than most humans could track. His right fist came in a straight punch aimed at Jiwoo's head, backed by all that alien strength. It was a good technique, textbook perfect. The punch would have knocked out a human instantly. Jiwoo was not there when it arrived. She had shifted her weight to her left foot and pivoted, letting the punch slide past her shoulder close enough that she felt the wind of it. Her right hand came up and caught Rosh's extended wrist. Before he could pull back, she stepped inside his guard, using his own momentum against him. Her left hand pressed against his elbow. A simple push, perfectly angled. Rosh stumbled forward, off balance. His eyes went wide with surprise. Jiwoo released him and stepped back. Again, she said. Rosh's face darkened with embarrassment. This time, he came in with a combination, left jab, right cross, then a knee strike. Fast, powerful, well executed. Each blow could have broken bones. Jiwoo moved like water around rocks. She redirected the jab with her forearm, ducked under the cross, and sidestepped the knee. Her hand touched Rosh's shoulder as she passed, nothing more than a tap, but it sent him spinning slightly off axis. You are telegraphing your strikes, Jiwoo said. Your shoulder drops before you punch. Your knee lifts before you kick. Against an untrained opponent, this would not matter. Against someone watching carefully, it gives them all the time they need. Rosh was breathing hard now, more from frustration than exertion. Around them, the other cadets murmured. Some of the alien species were nodding, recognizing good technique when they saw it. The humans looked relieved and proud, but Velther was not impressed. He stepped forward onto the mat, his boots making heavy sounds on the padded floor. Enough of this dance, he said coldly. You have shown you can dodge a cadet. This proves nothing. Rosh is young, inexperienced. He hesitates because you are an instructor. The commander's golden eyes fixed on Jiwoo like a predator spotting prey. I will not hesitate. Jiwoo turned to face him fully. Even across the space between them, the difference in their size was obvious. Velther had at least 2 feet of height on her and probably weighed 3 times as much. His arms were thick as tree branches. Scars marked his scales, old wounds from battle she could not imagine. Commander, Jiwoo said carefully, I do not think this is necessary. The cadets have seen the principle. Technique can overcome strength when applied correctly. Have they? Velther moved closer, circling her slowly. Or have they seen a lucky instructor dodge a few clumsy attacks? You speak of technique, but words are easy. The coalition needs warriors who can fight, not theorists who can lecture. He stopped circling and faced her directly. I am going to strike you once, Lieutenant Park. Just once. I will announce it clearly so there is no confusion. A simple overhead strike, the kind we teach to first-year cadets. If your human techniques are so superior, you should have no trouble defending against it. The gymnasium had gone completely silent. Even the cadets who had been whispering had stopped. Everyone understood what was really happening here. This was not about testing technique. This was about putting a human in her place, about showing these cadets that Earth had nothing to teach the great Galactic Coalition. This was about humiliation. Jiwoo felt her heartbeat steady and slow. She had been in this position before, back on Earth. A smaller fighter facing someone bigger, stronger, more experienced. The doubters who thought size was everything. The bullies who mistook cruelty for strength. She had learned long ago that the biggest opponents often fell the hardest because they had never needed to learn subtlety. Very well, Commander, she said. Her voice was quiet but carried clearly. "One strike. Make it count." Valthor smiled, showing all his teeth. "Oh, I intend to." He raised his right arm high, making sure everyone could see. His hand was open, fingers together, ready to deliver a hammer strike that would use gravity and momentum and all his considerable strength. It was the same technique that Draxian warriors used to shatter combat drones in training exercises. It was simple, powerful, and nearly impossible to block. "Watch closely, cadets," Valthor announced. "This is how Draxian warriors end fights." He brought his hand down like a falling axe. Jiwoo moved, not backward, as anyone sensible would have done, not to the side to dodge. She moved forward, inside the arc of the strike, and her left hand came up to meet Valthor's descending wrist. Her fingers wrapped around it, not trying to stop the force, just redirecting it. At the same moment, her right hand pressed against his elbow, and she pivoted her entire body. Valthor's own momentum carried him forward. His strike, instead of landing where Jiwoo had been standing, went past her and down into empty air. He was suddenly leaned too far forward, his weight on the wrong foot, his balance compromised. Jiwoo kept control of his wrist and stepped to his right side. Her foot hooked behind his ankle. A small push with her shoulder against his extended arm taught the commander of the Galactic Coalition Academy, the legendary Draxian warrior, stumbled. He did not fall, not yet. He was too skilled for that. But he stumbled, and everyone saw it. Valthor's eyes went wide, not with fear, but with shock. No one had managed this against him in years. He tried to yank his arm free, using his superior strength to power through Jiwoo's grip. She had expected this. She wanted this. As he pulled back, she did not resist. Instead, she moved with him, maintaining contact with his wrist, and dropped her weight lower. Her other hand found a pressure point on his arm, just above the elbow. She pressed hard. Valthor's arm went briefly numb from the nerve strike. In that half-second of weakness, Jiwoo executed a technique she had practiced 10,000 times on Earth. She twisted his wrist, stepped through, and used a combination of joint, manipulation, and leverage to bring the mighty Draxian commander down to one knee. The sound of his knee hitting the mat echoed through the silent gymnasium. Jiwoo held the position for exactly 3 seconds, long enough for every cadet to see clearly. Valthor's arm was locked, his wrist bent at an angle that would break if she applied just a little more pressure. His other arm was trapped by his own body position. He could not rise without injuring himself. Then she leaned close to his ear and spoke softly, so only he could hear. "Next lesson, Commander. Power without control is just noise." She released him and stepped back, offering her hand to help him up. Valthor stared at the offered hand for a long moment. His golden eyes moved from Jiwoo's extended fingers to her face. She kept her expression neutral, professional, showing neither triumph nor pity. Around them, the entire gymnasium held its breath. The commander pushed himself to his feet without accepting her help. His movements were stiff, controlled. He rotated his shoulder where she had applied the joint lock, testing for damage. Finding none, he straightened to his full height and looked down at her. "You are faster than you appear," he said finally. His voice was flat, giving nothing away. "Speed is relative, Commander," Jiwoo replied. She lowered her hand and turned to address the cadets, deliberately moving on from the moment. What you just witnessed was not about speed. It was about timing, positioning, and understanding leverage. Cadet Rosh's attacks failed because he relied solely on his natural advantages. Commander Valthor's strike failed for the same reason, though his technique was much better. She walked to the center of the mat, aware that every eye followed her. The 4 human cadets looked stunned and proud. The alien cadets wore expressions of confusion, interest, and in some cases, anger. No one spoke. In combat, Your advantages can become weaknesses, Jiwoo continued. If you are strong, you learn to rely on strength. If you are fast, you trust in speed. But an opponent who understands this can turn your advantages against you. This is what humans learned thousands of years ago, fighting creatures much larger and stronger than ourselves. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We only had our minds and our ability to learn. A cadet near the back raised a tentacle. It was one of the aquatic species, wearing a breathing apparatus that bubbled softly. Instructor Park, are you saying technique always beats strength? No, Jiwoo said immediately. Technique gives you a chance. If Commander Velther had been expecting my counter, if he had trained against opponents who fight like humans, he would have adapted. Technique is not magic. It is simply understanding the mechanics of combat better than your opponent. She looked directly at Velther as she said this. The commander's face was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. Calculation, perhaps. Or reconsideration. Pair off, Jiwoo instructed the cadets. Mixed species where possible. I will teach you the basic principles of redirection. Do not try to stop your partner's force. Learn to guide it away from you. Humans, I expect you to demonstrate what I showed you. Everyone else, I expect you to try to break through those techniques. This is how we all learn. The cadets moved to follow her instructions, though slowly at first. There was an awkward energy in the room, a sense that the normal order of things had been disrupted. Eventually, they began to pair up and practice. Jiwoo moved among them, correcting grips, adjusting stances, explaining the principles behind each movement. Velther remained at the edge of the mat, watching. He did not leave. He did not interrupt. He simply observed with those golden eyes, tracking every movement Jiwoo made. When Jiwoo demonstrated a throw on Cadet Mireille, using the woman's own momentum to flip her gently onto the mat, Velther made a small sound. It might have been approval. It was hard to tell. The class lasted 2 hours. By the end, several of the alien cadets were successfully executing basic redirections against their partners. The humans struggled more, lacking the physical advantages they were learning to counter, but they made up for it with determination. Cadet Hyan managed to throw a cadet who outweighed him by 100 pounds using pure technique. Dismissed, Jiwoo said finally. Practice these movements in your free time. Tomorrow we will add strikes to the combinations. Expect it to be harder. The cadets filed out in small groups, talking among themselves. Their conversations were animated now, no longer dismissive. Jiwoo heard phrases like, "Did you see?" and "impossible leverage." And "maybe humans know something," drifting back to her. Soon the gymnasium was empty except for Jiwoo and Velther. The commander approached slowly, his boots echoing on the mat. He stopped a respectful distance away, far enough that she would have time to react if he tried anything. The fact that he considered this told her something. That was not luck, Velther said. It was not a question. No, Commander. It was not. You anticipated my attack pattern. You knew I would rely on strength and reach. Yes. How many times have you practiced that counter? Jiwoo considered the question. Against that specific attack? Maybe 1,000 times. Against variations of it? 10,000 at least. It is one of the fundamental responses in human close-quarters combat. Velther's scales shifted color slightly, darkening. In Draxian body language, this indicated deep thought. I have fought for 30 years. I have faced opponents from 40 different species. I have studied every major combat discipline in the Coalition. Never have I been taken down so easily. You telegraphed your intent, Jiwoo said simply. You announced what you were going to do. You gave me time to prepare. In a real fight, you would not be so generous. Perhaps. Velther's eyes narrowed. Or perhaps you're simply better than I expected. Better than I wanted to believe a human could be." He was silent for a moment, then added, "I came to your class intending to humiliate you. To show these cadets that Earth's admission to the Coalition was premature. That humans had nothing of value to offer our warriors." "I know," Jiwoo said. "It did not go as I planned." "No, Commander." "It did not." Another long silence stretched between them. Outside the high windows, Jiwoo could see ships moving across the stars, supplies and personnel flowing to and from the academy. Somewhere out there was Earth, 3 weeks away, where people were probably wondering how their first instructor was managing among the aliens. She decided they would probably not believe her if she told them. "I will return tomorrow," Velther said finally, "to observe your next class, if you permit it." This was significant. He was asking permission, acknowledging her authority in this space. Jiwoo recognized the gesture for what it was, a small surrender, the first crack in his armor of certainty. "You are always welcome to observe, Commander," she said. "You might even learn something." For the first time since they had met, Velther's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile. It looked strange on his reptilian features, showing too many sharp teeth. But it seemed genuine. "I believe I already have. Lieutenant Park." He turned and walked toward the exit, his posture straighter than before, as if a weight had lifted from his shoulders. At the door, he paused and looked back. "One more thing," he said. "That pressure point strike you used on my arm. Where did you learn it?" "Human martial arts tradition," Jiwoo answered. "We have been mapping nerve clusters and weak points on our own bodies for thousands of years. Every species has them. You just have to know where to look." Velther nodded slowly. "Interesting. Very interesting." Then he was gone, the door sliding shut behind him. Jiwoo stood alone in the empty gymnasium, letting the silence settle around her. Her hands were shaking slightly, the adrenaline finally catching up to her now that the confrontation was over. She had known the risks of embarrassing a senior officer, especially one as respected as Velther. The situation could have gone very badly, but it had not. Instead, she had planted a seed, not of fear, but of curiosity. The commander had come to prove her worthless and left with questions. That was more than she had hoped for. Jiwoo gathered her teaching materials and headed for the exit. As she walked through the corridors back to her quarters, she passed groups of cadets who stopped talking when they saw her. Some nodded respectfully. Others stared openly. Word had spread fast out in her room. She found a message waiting on her console. It was from Administrator Kethis, brief and formal. "Report to my office at 1300 hours tomorrow. We need to discuss your teaching methods." Jiwoo smiled to herself. Of course they did. She had just thrown their tactical warfare chief onto the mat in front of 30 witnesses. There would be consequences, but as she lay down to sleep that night, she felt satisfied. She had done exactly what she came here to do. Not to prove humans were better than other species, but to prove they had something worth teaching. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Tonight, she would rest. The meeting with Administrator Kethis was shorter than Jiwoo expected. She arrived at his office at exactly 1300 hours, prepared for anything from a reprimand to dismissal. Instead, she found the purple-skinned administrator reviewing footage of her class on a holographic display. "Sit, Lieutenant," he said without looking up. Jiwoo sat. On the display, she watched herself catch Velther's wrist and take him down. The footage showed the sequence from 3 different angles. It looked even more impressive in slow motion. Kethis finally turned off the display and looked at her. His pupilless eyes were unreadable. "In 15 years of running this academy, I have never seen anyone put Velther on the mat," he said. "Did you know that when you volunteered to demonstrate?" "No, sir. but you were confident you could do it. I was confident in my training, sir. Kefis leaned back in his chair. Commander Velther has submitted a request to attend all of your classes as an observer. He claims it is to ensure quality standards are maintained. I suspect his real reason is different. The administrator's expression shifted into something that might have been amusement. Several cadets have also requested transfer into your advanced combat courses, including cadets who already hold black belt equivalents in their own species' martial traditions. Is that a problem, sir? On the contrary. The Academy's mission is to train the finest warriors in the Coalition. If your methods can improve our cadets' capabilities, then I would be a fool to stop you. He pulled up another display, this one showing enrollment numbers. However, I am concerned about scale. You are one instructor. We have 700 cadets at this academy. I understand, sir. Do you? Because I'm about to approve a request from the Coalition Military Council to expand your program. They want human combat techniques integrated into the standard curriculum across all Coalition training facilities. Kefis fixed her with a direct stare. You will need to train other instructors, both human and alien. Can you do this? Jiwoo had not expected this. She had come here hoping to earn some respect, to prove Earth deserved its place in the Coalition. She had not imagined changing the entire military training system. Yes, sir, she said, because what else could she say? I can do this. Good. I am assigning Commander Velther to assist you in developing the new curriculum. He has extensive experience with multi-species integration. He will also provide perspective on how your techniques can be adapted for non-human physiology. Kefis smiled slightly. I suspect he will be motivated to ensure the program succeeds. Over the following weeks, Jiwoo's life became a blur of classes, meetings, and planning sessions. Her morning combat courses grew from 30 cadets to 60, then to 90. She taught 3 sessions a day now, each one packed with students eager to learn these strange human fighting methods. True to his word, Velther attended every class. He no longer stood at the back with crossed arms. Instead, he participated, asking questions, offering insights about alien physiology, and occasionally volunteering as a demonstration partner. The cadets watched in fascination as their legendary tactical warfare chief learned alongside them die in the evenings. Jiwoo and Velther met in a small conference room to plan the expanded curriculum. These sessions were strange at first. The commander who had tried to humiliate her now listened carefully to her explanations, taking notes, suggesting modifications. This wrist lock will not work on Vorantine anatomy, he said one night, reviewing her lesson plans. Their joints bend the opposite direction. But if you reverse the pressure point here and here, the principle remains the same. Jiwoo made the adjustment in her notes. How do you know so much about Varantine physiology? I have fought them, and with them, and taught them. Velther looked up from the display. I have spent my entire life studying combat, Lieutenant. I thought I knew everything worth knowing. Then you showed me an entire dimension of fighting that I had dismissed without examination. Human techniques are not better than Draxian techniques, Commander. They are just different. Perhaps, but different can be valuable. He pulled up footage from one of her recent classes. It showed Cadet Hyan successfully defending against a Varantini opponent 3 times his size. Look at this. 2 months ago, this human cadet would have been crushed in seconds. Now he survives, even wins, against opponents who should dominate him. That is not just technique. That is a complete shift in how we think about combat. Jiwoo watched the footage. Hyan was using the principles she had taught him, redirecting force, targeting weak points, staying mobile. But he was also adding his own variations, adapting the techniques to his personal style. The cadets are learning faster than I expected, she admitted. Because you are a good teacher, Walther said simply. And because what you teach makes sense. Once they understand the principles, they can apply them anywhere. He paused. I was wrong about humans, Lieutenant. I thought you were weak because you lacked physical advantages. I did not understand that your weakness forced you to become clever. That is a different kind of strength. What changed your mind? Walther was quiet for a moment. You did. When I tried to humiliate you, you could have complained to the administrators. You could have refused the challenge. Instead, you met it head-on and defeated me without cruelty or gloating. You treated it as a teaching moment, not a victory. That showed character I did not expect. I have been underestimated before, Commander. It is easier to prove worth through action than through argument. Wise words. Walther turned back to the curriculum plans. We should add a section on multi-opponent tactics. Coalition warriors often fight in mixed species units. They need to understand how to coordinate with partners who have different capabilities. Agreed. I was thinking we could pair students strategically. Fast species with strong species. Long-range specialists with close combat specialists. Teach them to complement each other. They worked late into the night, building something new. A synthesis of human adaptability and coalition diversity. Around them, the Academy slept, but in that small conference room, they were creating the future of military training. Word of the program spread beyond the Academy. Jiwoo started receiving messages from Earth, from her old instructors and commanding officers, congratulating her on representing humanity so well. She also received messages from coalition officers she had never met, asking questions about her methods, requesting visits to observe her classes. The 4 human cadets in her original class had become something like celebrities. Hyen and Meirei excelled particularly, not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they understood the principles deeply and could explain them to others. Jiwoo began using them as assistant instructors for the newer students. One afternoon, after a particularly intense training session, Cadet Meirei approached Jiwoo with a question. Instructor, may I ask something personal? Of course, Meirei. When Commander Walther challenged you that first day, were you scared? Jiwoo considered the question carefully. Yes, he's a formidable opponent. If I had made a mistake, if my technique had failed, it would have damaged not just my reputation, but Earth's standing in the coalition. But you did not show fear. Fear is natural. Cadet, it keeps us alert, keeps us careful. The trick is not to let fear control your actions. I was afraid, but I trusted my training. Jiwoo smiled. Besides, I had spent 3 weeks on that transport ship, practicing against holographic Draxian opponents. I knew what to expect. Meirei laughed. You planned for it. Always plan, Cadet. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. 6 weeks after her arrival, Administrator Kethis called another meeting. This time, Walther was there too, along with the floating sphere that served as the Academy's strategic planning advisor. The Coalition Military Council has made a decision, Kethis announced. They want to establish a new training program, the Integrated Combat Initiative. Lieutenant Park, you will serve as the program director. Commander Walther, you will serve as deputy director and liaison to coalition forces. The sphere pulsed with light. This is unprecedented. Never before has the coalition adopted a training methodology from a member species so quickly. But the results speak for themselves. Cadets trained in your methods show a 40% improvement in combat effectiveness scores across all scenarios. What does this mean, sir? Jiwoo asked. It means you will be training instructors, not just cadets, Kethis said. Experienced warriors from across the coalition will come here to learn your techniques so they can teach them to their own units. You will have a staff, a budget, and complete authority over curriculum development. Jiwoo looked at Velther, who nodded encouragingly. "I accept." "Sir," she said. "Good." Kathis stood, signaling the meeting's end. "Congratulations, Lieutenant Park. 6 weeks ago, you were an unknown instructor from a species many considered inferior. Today, you are changing how the entire coalition thinks about combat. Your species should be proud." As Jiwoo left the office, Velther walked beside her. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "You have opened a door, Lieutenant. Now we must see where it leads." 3 months after Jiwoo's arrival at the academy, the Coalition Military Council announced an inspection. A team of high-ranking officers would visit to evaluate the integrated combat initiative before approving its full implementation across all Coalition forces. The news sent ripples of tension through the academy. "They are sending General Thane," Velther told Jiwoo over breakfast in the instructor's dining hall. "He is Vorantine, very traditional, very skeptical of new methods. He believes combat effectiveness comes from superior genetics and equipment, not training." Jiwoo sipped her coffee. Earth-grown beans that cost a fortune this far from home. "Then we will show him otherwise. It will not be that simple. Thane has the authority to shut down the entire program if he deems it ineffective. And he is bringing his own combat specialists to test our students." "Good," Jiwoo said. "Theory is one thing. Proof is another." The inspection team arrived on a Tuesday morning. General Thane was enormous, even by Vorantine's standards, standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick armor plating that grew naturally from his skin. His eyes were small and dark, set deep in a face that looked carved from stone. Behind him came a dozen specialists from various species, all of them carrying datapads and skeptical expressions. Administrator Kathis greeted them formally in the main assembly hall. Jiwoo stood to one side with Velther, watching the proceedings. The general's gaze swept across her and dismissed her almost instantly. To him, she was just a small human, barely worth noticing. After the formal greetings, General Thane addressed the gathered academy staff. "I am here to evaluate this integrated combat initiative," he said, his voice like grinding rocks. "I have reviewed the preliminary reports. Impressive numbers, but numbers can be manipulated. I want to see real results. Combat effectiveness under pressure. Not training exercises, but genuine tests." Kathis nodded. "We have prepared a demonstration, General. A full-contact exercise in our zero-gravity combat arena. Mixed teams using integrated techniques against traditional combat approaches." "Not good enough," Thane said flatly. "Demonstrations can be staged. I want my team to test your students directly. Unscripted scenarios. Real combat conditions." The assembly hall went quiet. This was not part of the planned inspection. Thane was changing the rules, trying to catch them unprepared. Velther stepped forward. "General, our students are cadets, still in training. Your specialists are experienced combat veterans. The comparison would not be fair." "War is not fair, Commander," Thane replied. "If these human techniques are as effective as claimed, your students should be able to hold their own against superior opponents. Is that not the entire point of Lieutenant Park's program?" He had them trapped with their own logic. Jiwoo had been teaching that technique could overcome natural advantages. Now the general wanted proof. "I accept the challenge," Jiwoo said, stepping forward. All eyes turned to her. "But with one condition. Let me select the teams and the scenario. If your specialists can defeat our students under conditions I design, you can shut down the program. But if our students succeed, you approve full implementation across the coalition." Thane studied her for a long moment. "You are confident, human." "I am confident in my students, General." "Very well." You have 2 days to prepare. My team will be ready." He turned and walked out, his specialists following. The next 2 days were chaos. Jiwoo gathered her best students and explained the situation. 30 cadets from different species, all trained in integrated combat techniques. They would face 15 of the coalition's elite specialists in a combat scenario that Jiwoo was still designing. "We are going to lose," Cadet Hyan said quietly. He had become one of her best students, but even he sounded worried. Those specialists have decades of combat experience. Experience fighting opponents who fight like them, Jiwoo countered. They expect traditional tactics. We will give them something different. She pulled up a holographic display of the zero-gravity arena. It was a massive sphere, 200 meters in diameter, filled with obstacles and cover points. Perfect for what she had in mind. "Here is the scenario," she explained. "Capture the flag in zero gravity. 3 objectives scattered throughout the arena. First team to control all 3 objectives for 60 consecutive seconds wins. Full contact rules, non-lethal weapons only." Cadet Mireille frowned. "That favors larger teams. They have 15 specialists. We have 30 cadets. The numbers advantage is ours." "True, but their specialists are used to working in small, elite units. They will split into groups and try to take objectives through superior individual skill. We will use coordination and adapted techniques." Jiwoo highlighted sections of the arena. "Velther has been teaching you how different species can complement each other. Now you get to prove those lessons work." Velther had joined the planning session. "The general expects you to fight like humans. Guerrilla tactics, hit and run, using numbers to wear them down. Do not give him what he expects. What should we do instead?" asked a crystalline cadet named Kira. Jiwoo smiled. "We fight like coalition warriors. United, coordinated, using every advantage we have. Show them that integration is not weakness. It is strength." The day of the test arrived. The entire academy gathered in the observation galleries surrounding the zero-gravity arena. General Thane sat in the command box with Administrator Kethis, watching the students and specialists enter from opposite sides. Jiwoo's team looked nervous but determined. They had practiced the plan until it was automatic. Hyan would lead one squad, Mireille another, and a Draxian cadet named Kos would lead the third. Each squad was mixed, combining speed with strength, ranged capability with close combat skill. The specialists entered with casual confidence. They wore standard coalition combat gear and carried stun weapons. Most of them were grinning, expecting an easy demonstration against undertrained cadets. The signal light flashed green. The exercise began. Jiwoo's students moved immediately, executing the plan perfectly. Instead of rushing the objectives, they took defensive positions, using the arena's obstacles for cover. The 3 squads remained connected through communication links, sharing information about specialist movements. The specialists split into 3 groups, as predicted. They moved toward the objectives with professional efficiency, expecting resistance at the control points. They found empty space instead. "Where are they?" General Thane muttered, leaning forward in his seat. Jiwoo's students had circled around, avoiding direct confrontation. Now they moved in from unexpected angles, using the 3-dimensional nature of zero-gravity combat to attack from above and below. Simultaneously, Hyan's squad hit first, targeting the smallest group of specialists. Instead of trying to overpower them, the cadets used coordinated strikes. A fast-moving insectoid cadet drew fire while Hyan and 2 others flanked from different angles. They used the techniques Jiwoo had taught, redirecting the specialist's aim, staying mobile. Working together. Within 30 seconds, that group of specialists was neutralized. Stunned by coordinated fire, Mireille's squad employed different tactics. They used a crystalline cadet as mobile cover, their natural armor deflecting stun shots while others provided supporting fire. When the specialists tried to rush them, they fell into carefully prepared traps, crossfire zones where multiple cadets could target them simultaneously. Koss's squad, all heavy combat species, held the center, drawing attention while the other squads maneuvered. They fought defensively, using Draxian strength combined with human tactical principles, making the specialists waste energy trying to break through. Impossible, one of Thane's advisors whispered. The cadets are dominating. It was true. 10 minutes into the exercise, the specialists had been reduced to half strength. Jiwoo's students controlled 2 objectives and were closing on the third. They moved like a single organism, each squad supporting the others, adapting to changing conditions. The remaining specialists tried to regroup, using their superior individual skills to mount a counterattack. But they were fighting as individuals against a coordinated team. Every time they focused on one threat, another appeared from a different angle. 15 minutes in, the students controlled all 3 objectives. The countdown began. 60 seconds. The specialist launched a desperate assault, trying to retake at least one objective before time expired. They fought well, using every advantage they had. But Jiwoo students held firm, using integrated techniques to compensate for individual weaknesses. The timer reached 0. The exercise ended. Silence filled the observation galleries. Then, slowly, applause began. It started with the academy cadets and spread to the instructors, even some of Thane's own team. What they had witnessed was not just a victory. It was a demonstration of a completely new approach to combat. General Thane stood slowly. His expression was unreadable as he made his way down to the arena floor. Jiwoo and Velther met him there, along with the exhausted but triumphant students. "Lieutenant Park," the general said heavily, "I came here expecting to expose your program as an experiment in futility. I believed that individual excellence and genetic advantages were the foundations of military effectiveness." He paused. "I was wrong." He turned to address everyone in the arena. "What I witnessed today was not luck or chance. It was the result of superior training and tactical integration.